In what you've done with your life thus far, is it giving you what you want? Is it giving you what you want? When you look toward the future, when you look at all that's going on out here, is there some place within yourself you say, hey, I know I need to be out there in that arena. I know I can do more than what I've been doing. I know there's some great music that I have within me that I haven't brought out here yet. Is that something that you begin to look at within yourself? See, I say if you look at your life, and if you're not getting what you want, you owe it to yourself to do something differently.
You know, we just see whatever happens in the conversation, but I most certainly know that that's why I was saying the value in mentors. Because sometimes it's not that we can't do something, it's really about do we want to do something. And that's a big thing, because if you don't want to do it, you feel like you're being forced to do it, it puts you back in that same mindset of combat. Because that's like your parents trying to get you to do something that you don't want to do, your school's trying to get you to do something that you don't want to do. So it's just triggering that. And now your expansion, which is still the most vast thing you can ever participate in, is hung up on the same frequency and aspect of the conflicts that you face in life. And that's so important for what we're, I could say, trying to get across, because sometimes it don't necessarily work. I could say want to get across because our intentions are there, but then also need to get across because many of these people that we're talking to are actually in our environment. And that's the big thing, is that if we can't metamorphosize those that are in our environment, then we've got ourselves into a situation. If a person is unhappy and they're in your presence and you're directly responsible for bringing them unhappiness, when it's time to be catching that kite up out of here and get into that next level, there's a period that one has to go back through all those experiences in a real deep level of what they call full immersion. It's like 3.5 days. Personally, I believe that 3.5 days is this life. I believe that we're in a full immersion of our past, and we're going through the experiences as we acted them out before. So every scenario that you're in an argument, you're disgruntled, you step on an animal or whatever, you hurt something, you're living back through that experience again, and then now it's asking you, are you gonna make another choice this time? Sometimes that comes off as deja vu. You feel this really strong moment like, okay, here's the crossroads here. Last time you went left, this time you're gonna go right. What's going to happen here? So, this is just, it's a lot of, well, I won't even say a lot, but there's a bit of theory to this. It's right now, this life, this is according to the frequency, some stage of death in which a person's going back to their experience. And the other way I can prove this, though, is that when I came into awakening, all the way up until this point, there are things that occur that let me know for sure that there are things being planned out already. And people call that synchronicity. But in real respect to what it is, that means that you're moving through something that's already prepared, because it's already there, it's already created, it's already happening. You see what I mean? So these are deeper introspections on a lot of times what the adepts mentioned in a lot of their books and their writings and things, but even them somehow not being aware that we were participating in something much more thought. And so then that makes me personally responsible to where if I'm holding someone in my reality and they're unhappy, I need to also now see myself as some kind of ogre then that is now got this thing that I can't metamorphosize into what it should be in my presence, but I'm somehow keeping it in a prison, even if it's through my money, if it's through, past ideas of who they know that we could be together, if it's still trying to see if we're going to make some money, because this is not just personal relationships, it's also business relationships. You see what I mean? So a person can become basically held into your orbit, but be a dying star, let's say. And in that respect, the reason why altruism comes in very deep, meaning really getting to the selfless point, to really do what you need to do, not only with those people for bad or for good, but just being a selfless person, which is activating the full side of yourself, like really caring about whether this person is going to get to the next level. And if you have enough knowledge to know, okay, their next level, her next level, his next level means me being out of the picture, altruism is actually walking away from that. See, sometimes people think Selflessness is just doing what a person tells you, and that's not what we're talking about. That's actually codependency and co-inhibitors. What we're talking about is even if the situation is going to get critical for a while for that person, in full altruism, if you know that's the best decision, you have to do that versus, oh, I don't want to hurt their feelings. So now you're considering all these different things that actually rob the person of their liberty, and then you compensate. Now we're fighting against a force within ourselves. This force, it wants to wake up. It wants to be free. It doesn't want to live non-truth. It doesn't want to live the stagnancy. It doesn't want to live in that environment. And it's raging. And that's why I feel like, in my being personally, when I have entered in the past into certain situations where I felt like, okay, either this changes or I can't go anywhere. What generally happens if I don't change something is I get into some kind of rage. And at first I thought it was like, okay, this is like a little unbalanced. Well, not a little unbalanced, a lot unbalanced. What's happening? I just now recognize that that's called raging against the dying of the light. That's you now back in the primordial wild state just to fight for still this inkling of a chance that you can actually go beyond where the general scope of everything is. You're not allowing yourself to give up. You're not allowing yourself to quit. Even if it means you have to actually push some buttons in yourself and take on a whole nother character for a moment, just to let you see, okay, this is a little bit more. The more appreciation that you have, the more gratitude. See, when people used to say, oh man, Seven, you need to be more grateful. I mean, like, man, grateful for what? Like, I mean, these folks then took every single thing we have, these folks then, and then they're mind control. I don't understand what to be grateful for. We're just, see, that's according, you're now in their world. If you had your own world, would you be grateful for it? Gratitude flip-flops right away into the ability to allow you to tap into the feeling, the actual feeling that a lot of people lost about where they're actually at in the reality in the first place. What have they really gained? Like if you have children now, if you came from nothing, if you at least now can get on this computer, you know how to use it. And that's how some of the most successful people in the world that work with, you know, expanding consciousness, giving motivation, those kind of things, that's how they've gotten to that level. They've used another toolkit. Now, there's a lot of different toolkits. In fact, what generally happens then is that when you start having gratitude for the people that are around you, you realize that since the whole thing is backwards, these people are not just around you, these people are connected to you in some strange way. And then what happens is if you're becoming the ogre for their life, this is a part of the connection. Somehow that they didn't become happy in their experience with you. And you realizing that this is going to play over again in your consciousness, and this is something that you're going to bear the responsibility for, you wake up in that moment, you become present, and then you realize that, okay, if I learn another tool set, if I get another toolkit, I can actually metamorphosize this person into what they're really looking to be. And I do care about them enough to do that. It's just I don't care about when I'm trying to actually do that, especially when I'm using the old toolkit, and it's not working. And then the situations that occur after that. Somebody might say, what's the answer to the question? The answer to the question is right now, this moment. That person needs to hear this. See people talking about practical things. See the assistance there, like getting the whole altruism versus selfishness, even in their own lives. And then seeing the, oh, hey, there's some brothers out there, some sisters out there that are actually willing to assist me in this process that have this same thing going on. Because, see, this is what I find in the nucleus of most relationships. Not just my own, but definitely my own, personal and business. And this is why we're not getting anywhere, right? And a big part of that is because the conflict is in itself the number two. Dual is two. Duality is two. So anytime you put two people into a scenario, they only have two choices: to collide or to go in separate ways. So when you work with that kind of geometry and you work with those kind of ideologies, it naturally can't get you and the person anywhere, and it cannot build any relationship. What I'm noticing that is missing from many of the very conscious relationships that have started now is still the unifying component. what people would say is a unified field. Find that unifying field in your own reality and in your own household. To what are we all agreeing on? Just like in a business, there's a mission statement, and everyone that comes to work for that business needs to understand that statement and agree that that is also their mission. And when they deviate from that mission statement, then that is when they're promptly removed from that company. So if we're not even walking into relationships, and I find this is that when people walk into any kind of relationship and they don't state their boundaries, they're just automatically expecting someone to know what their boundary is. And when that boundary is breached, they generally don't even say what happened, they just react. And that's why relationships are so dynamic. They take time, because who do you want anyway to just come to you and tell you, okay, I don't like this, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that. And that's why there's so much work that a person has to do on themselves personally before they can begin to apply this kind of thing. Because then of course they're going in and they already know the results that they're looking for. They know that they're looking to work with this toolkit that's going to get them success. And the reason why they're in that dynamic, whoever they're around and whatever they're doing, is because and they know that that's where they're supposed to be.